my personal perspective on plant medicine work is like you're letting and you're allowing the soul and your deeper feminine embodiment really come forward.
There's this whole other component of peak performance, personal development, stepping into our feminine power, heart-centered leadership. All of that has a collective theme, in my opinion, of coming home. And what we see with intentional microdosing is they help you soften and really get to the depth of who you are and how you want to show up.
Tiff, long time coming. I'm so excited to have you.
So good to be here. Yes, such a long time coming.
Not only, one of my guides and mentors in this life, but such a dear sister to me and just someone that I respect and admire and adore. And you have made me laugh harder than like anyone that I've ever known. And I'm just, it's a joy and an honor to share your wisdom and your heart and just all that you are with my babe. So I'm just so excited, boo.
I love you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Such a long time coming.
It's such a long time coming. Okay, we're going to have a really powerful conversation. So first, can you just walk us through like what intentional microdosing actually is?
So intentional microdosing is choosing to work with a medicine at a low dose that's sub-intoxicating, non-hallucinogenic. You're not tripping. You can do all things in life, but you're working with it in a way where you have certain goals and intentions of what you're truly desiring to experience. So, of course, we can work with these medicines from a recreational perspective, and that's beautiful. And you can also bring so much intention into that experience as well. But when we really work with it more so in like a therapeutic sort of personal healing, wanting to explore parts within ourselves that we want to know more about, or there's something that we're wanting to release or unpack or just learn more deeply about ourselves, bringing in that reverence and bringing in that sovereignty within yourself of a clear intention and pairing that with a medicine such as a plant medicine that's a tool and a resource to really help you go much more deeply into that experience is so beautiful and so powerful. And you can bring intention with anything, of course, right? We have intention with this episode. And bringing the intention and pairing it with the medicine can optimize and accelerate a lot of the healing that you're looking to experience, or creativity or fun or play, anything that you desire.
How do you see intentional microdosing supporting the people that you work with, especially maybe like high achievers, like entrepreneurs, athletes, like people who are just have a lot of demand and maybe work very left brain in their lives? How do you see this work really supporting them?
Yes, in so many ways. So I would say really tuning in and slowing down, right? When we think of high demand, we're usually kind of moving at a fast pace, or we're at a certain calibration. And sometimes we lose sight of really slowing down, tuning in, getting present, hearing our thoughts. These medicines really allow that to be present and allow you to drop more deeply into the body. I would say creativity is a huge one. A lot of times if we think of business, if we think of leadership, we have these like visionary, amazing ideas. And sometimes we have these blocks where we know the vision's clear. We know the path is set up. We know we have the goals and the team and everything present, but there's a block or there's some sort of roadblock, or we're not really able to see the full sight of what we're wanting to establish and create. These medicines, and I can go into the science as to how this is so possible, unlock that and allow you to remove the barriers and drop deeply and have these new perspectives and these new ideas that you might not have had originally, or you may have them, but there's something in the way, anxiety driven, stress driven, overwhelm driven, too much on your plate driven. It could be anything as to why that's not open.
Yeah, I do want to dive into how this works like neurologically. But before I do, something that I know so many women in my community really struggle with, whether they're beginning entrepreneurs or they're leaders in their space, is really like feeling afraid of what other people think about them and holding back their creativity. Have you seen intentional microdosing support people just really like break through, or maybe even women specifically, like break through states of consciousness like that?
100%. Absolutely 100%. Because like I said, you're removing a lot of that fear, right? When we think of why we might be experiencing some sort of fear, that's usually connected to something that is, we could say trauma related, we could say anything related, but we have established some sort of belief around that experience and what that means for us. And so that can show in our business, and it can show as fear, it can show as anxiety. And so establishing the awareness around that that's here and that's present is one. And then another is, how can we go into where that's coming from, and how can we like part the way so that we can still move forward in a way where we're not bypassing it, we're acknowledging it, but we're understanding why it's present and how to move forward. And so these medicines in so many ways allow you to understand where that's coming from in a way where you're not going completely like in the depths of it, but it's enough to understand it, to acknowledge it, make peace with it, and establish something better moving forward.
Yeah. And like, we'll get into in this conversation, like my experience working with you, because it's just been so cataclysmic and powerful for me. Let's talk really quickly. I am curious about the neurological component. I have a very like basic understanding around this. Like, you're definitely obviously our expert, but how does that work just like mentally and neurologically? Just this sort of like new information or new possibility coming online in like your neural patterning?
Such a good question. So many things. So neuroplasticity, right? So when we work with these medicines, and I'm mainly referencing psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, those are the main ones that we microdose with. It's enhancing neuroplasticity, which is our brain's ability to learn and adapt and be more open and receptive to making changes. And it's also creating new neural pathways, but it's establishing the execution of our current pathways. If we think of the fear example that we just talked through, that is a certain thought loop pattern that we are experiencing, and we're sort of on this hamster wheel and we're on repeat. And that's one pathway in the brain that we're experiencing that thought through. All of a sudden, when we work with these medicines, it's creating a communication from the left and the right hemispheres of the brain that typically are not as alert and as present and communicating with one another. All of a sudden, those are talking with each other, establishing these new pathways where that one thought now has options to go down. So you're not stuck on repeat. You now have these new perceptions to see things with a much more clear lens, and you have options. And that's so beautiful for people. I would say another part is the default mode network, what we all have, or amygdala. So the amygdala part of our brain is this tiny shaped almond that's actually really loud. And so between those two, the default mode and the amygdala, that's our anxiety fear response. That's the response of, I have this incredibly brilliant idea and I'm going forward, but that limiting thought or that fearful thought's like, no, you're not going there. No, that's why that's not yours, or whatever, insert whatever. That part, when we work with these medicines, quiets down. So when it quiets down, we slow down, we get present, we tune in emotionally with what we're actually experiencing and feeling and sensing. And we put ourselves in a much more better position to respond in a way that's intentional versus reactionary or based on the anxiety, fearful driven thought.
Yeah, like the old thought loop. I think that's been one of my most just incredible experiences with this work with you, is just getting to break kind of like that. I always think of that Joe Dispenza book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's how I look at psychedelics. If I were just to put, or plant medicine rather, do we want to call, do you call it plant medicine?
Psychedelic plant medicine.
Okay, psychedelic. Okay, I was going to say, I was like, because we ain't tripping out over here, especially me, because you know how sensitive I am. I like to have a really as gentle of an experience as I can. As you get so serious. Literally. Oh my God. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But, you know, I will say like, that's, I think one of the most profound pieces is it's just like when you're having like thought loops that are so like disingenuous to the true and total potential of what you know you're here to experience, and to be able to break it with something that is so healing and so expansive for the mind and the soul. I think it's a way, my personal perspective on plant medicine work is like, you're letting and you're allowing the soul and your deeper feminine embodiment really come forward. And then the fact that there's also this neurological component, it just fascinates me.
Absolutely. I love the science of it and the neurological aspect of it, because it paints the story and the picture of how it's all possible, right? A lot of people will, especially with microdosing, reference it as that's placebo. And there's a lot of, articles out around that, but the science is showing otherwise. And I think it's so valuable to share that, because every time I share it with a client or somebody new that wants to learn about psychedelics and plant medicine, it blows people's minds, because it's like, holy crap, that's actually happening from a neurobiological perspective.
Yeah.
It's completely rewiring.
Totally. And it's so experiential. It's just like, are you having an experience where you are changing and the things that used to plague you are no longer? So I'd love to know like more about your personal story. Like, how did you find this work? Is this something you always have felt integrated with? Like, give us a backstory, how you approach this, how this came into your life.
Right. So it found me, and as most medicines, they find you. And I have a 16-year background in the corporate industry, in the pharmaceutical, biotech, medical device world, working in business development and sales from an executive director perspective, and climbed the ladder. And really at that time in my life, like that was success to me. And, I woke up one day and realized I was completely burned out. I was full of high stress levels, anxiety, symptoms of depression, and ended up getting on medication, Lexapro and Adderall. And I was on both of those medications for about 6 years. And at the time, I started to go deep into therapy, deep into the personal development and emotional intelligence and leadership, and absolutely loved it. And it was serving me with what it was reaching healing wise at the time. Really, really served a purpose. But I knew deep down that I wasn't accessing the root of where the anxiety was coming from, why I was on the medications. And we could look at childhood trauma all day, but there were much bigger things in the room that I needed to come to acceptance around. And so I started hearing about psychedelics. This was about 9 years ago. Nothing was mainstream in the ways that it is today. There was not the research and the data that there is, but there was this deep knowing and this deep calling that I'm meant to be working with this medicine. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how this process is going to work, but I'm going to create this regimen, and I'm going to put myself on this protocol, and I'm going to get off this medication, and I'm going to leave my career, and I'm going to upgrade my life. And so I ended up microdosing with mushrooms, and I did that for 3 months, got completely off both of those medications within a 3-month period, which is pretty unheard of. I had no withdrawal symptoms. I didn't have any side effects. And I was feeling so alive because the medication was suppressing a lot. Whereas the medicine, the actual real medicine, was bringing things to the surface that I was processing and healing and navigating and spending time with, integrating. And, I just was like, wow, there's something really here with this. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. I was still obviously in the corporate world. So long story short, I was like, you know what? I have to share this. I have to figure out a business around this. I have to bring this to people, because this is so powerful and this is so potent. So I ended up creating a business, teaching people how to microdose. I stayed in the corporate, started working with clients, 3 to 5 clients a month, teaching them how to work with the medicine. That led into starting to facilitate at a higher dose with different medicines. And then I was in that for about 4 years. And I'm like, gosh, I really missed like the business background. How can I blend these worlds together? And so I ended up doing that. And I advise for companies now in the psychedelic and the wellness space. And I'm still teaching people how to work with these medicines. And it's been the best decision that I literally have ever made in my life. It's been so fulfilling.
And people might be like, Tiff, but we've never talked about your origin story with this. I feel like when, as you've come into my life over the last couple of years, it's one of those things when you meet someone and because they're so embodied in something, you just naturally trust them. That's always how I felt with you with this work. And when I'll never forget the morning, I think this is a good segue for this, where, you know, it was at the time when I was in my relationship and we were really struggling around the decision around having kids, and we'd get in like really intense, like, I don't want to say fights, but really intense moments about it because my resistance was so strong. My fear was so strong. And I remember you and I happened to go to Erewhon one morning after my birthday party, and we're standing in line, and I'll never forget it. I think we were married at the time. My husband or my partner is like, you should sit with psilocybin. And you looked at me and you go, no, you need to sit with ayahuasca. And I looked at you. I literally have to say how intense this was because it was a very intense moment. We're literally at the Erewhon Tonic
I'm waiting
Bar
for my
in
Haley
Venice.
Beaver smoothie. If I'm being honest.
Literally, you're waiting for your Hay Bees.
The first time I tried
your Haley Beaver smoothie, which you couldn't wait. Couldn't wait to have that. And I just remember like having this deep moment with you, and I was like, freaking crap, I know she's right. And I was very scared. But then that night, or it was within the week, I remember it was very close within the time we had this conversation. I knew you were right, but I was like, I'm scared, and that's a no for me. And I had this dream where you and I were sitting under this vined tree, and the vines were like infinite all around us. And you were sitting across from me completely illumined, and you were wearing this copper type top and this paisley green copper pants. And then I looked to my left and there is a gigantic snake. And I looked at the snake and I tried to escape under the vines because I was so terrified. And then I woke up from my dream. And when I analyzed the dream a little bit more, I was like, oh, the snake was actually the next morning meditating. I was like, oh, the snake was protecting us. And then the night that I showed up for my ceremony about 9 months later, you were wearing that outfit.
So wild.
I mean, I'll never forget it. And that was one of two visions, or I'm not sure what to call them, visions. I mean, the dream was so clear, but I felt that the consciousness of that plant, I feel that it's an intelligence, which if you're open to communicating a bit on that, I'd love for you to share. But like, I feel like there was an intelligence that was communicating to let me know that it was time. And that's not the first time I've experienced that before. We can go more into that because damn Tip, no one's seen me in as vulnerable a position as you have, like literally no one on this earth. So, and it's taken me time to want to share that was part of my last couple of years, but can we like park there for a minute and talk a little bit about that level of plant medicine work? Because obviously that's a much deeper level than a microdose.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me. I mean, that was big. We haven't even scratched the surface. So
we're still integrating that experience.
We're still a year and a half later.
And that happens with this medicine is sometimes it's years with the high dose. And so yes, when we're referencing this beautiful story, it is a therapeutic, in-person facilitated, very curated, intentional experience, preparation. There was so much preparation, especially with ayahuasca. There's a diet that we were following and everything. That's not to say that you have to follow the diet with, a psilocybin mushroom journey, but with this medicine specifically. And there's integration. I mean, it's a full-on experience, and it's deep and it's big and it's powerful and it's life-changing in so many ways. Yeah. And there is an intelligence in the medicine. And so when we think of, or when we talk about psychedelic plant medicine, so, ayahuasca is Peruvian from its origin, and it's a vine, it's a tree, it's growing from the earth. And our ancestors of thousands of years have been working with these medicines, not just ayahuasca, all of them, psilocybin, all of them. And there's a story of like when they would hunt for food, and they would hunt and they would have ceremonies and with their families, is they would work with these medicines to improve their vision in the evening to hunt and find food. And that's just incredible. One way. Wow. So when we talk about these medicines so publicly like today, and it is so mainstream in so many ways, and of course, they're still controlled substances. Yes. This is nothing new. This isn't something where it's a trend or it just, came into our society a few years ago. Our ancestors and in the lineages, there's deep intelligence in these medicines that have been worked with for so many years.
Yes. I was at Lightning in a Bottle many, many years ago, and there's I don't remember his name, but he's sort of like the forefather, or whatever we want to call, of like psilocybin. He's very famous in that space. I don't remember his name, but
like an older
guy.
Fadiman?
What's his name?
James Fadiman.
Yeah, he's known by everyone. And I remember my friends were like, you have to go listen to this guy. And he had like a huge keynote. I mean, there's probably 1,000 of us there listening. And I just remember him saying something that I never forgot. And he just said, the plants have an agenda and we're a part of the agenda. Because over the thousands and thousands and thousands of years that we've evolved on this planet, plant medicine of all origins from all over the world, this is what I learned that day. This is how we've evolved our consciousness. And obviously, I think it's taking such a front seat today for so many reasons, because I think we really need it. But I want to go a little deeper into my story as we continue the conversation. But how do you feel that this work is helping women move out of hustle culture, move more into their feminine? Because as you know, the theme of my journey with you was all around awakening my feminine. And I didn't even know that's what it was for. I always say there was literally a me before that experience and a me after. I mean, my face transformed, like everything shifted, which maybe, we'll get into today, but it's just like, what is your take on that? I personally feel that's a big part of this work.
Absolutely. And, I think in general in our society, if we look at women in business, so much of the way that we have been showing up and what we've learned and the ways that we've learned to do business is through the lens of masculinity in so many ways. And that when you can understand how to use both, it's so potent and it's so powerful, but it can be challenging. And that's where a lot of the anxiety and the fear and all those sorts of tendencies start to find their way in when it's not well balanced. And so I love working with these medicines to support women and dropping more deeply into their hearts, dropping more deeply into their feminine, because there's a reason why the feminine isn't feeling safe to expand and be seen and take up space is many different things. Insert what feels true for you. And so where I see these medicines being so powerful is because they open you. They take you more deeply into the truth. They help you soften and really get to the depth of who you are and how you want to show up, and putting the walls down, putting the barriers down. And it's so powerful. And I can go on and on about that, but it's just, it's so amazing.
Well, I remember there was a moment in my experience that night where, I sat alone. So you were my guide and we had preparation and my intentions. And I remember having to choose to drink my second cup, which was terrifying. What my ego wanted was just
to go to sleep.
I just wanted to sleep. But I remember laying there and being like, we didn't come here to sleep. But that was how I was in a lot of areas of my life. I just wanted it to be quote unquote easy, and it was making everything really hard. And I remember you came to me and you're like, hey babe, how we doing? And I'm like, I don't know where I am or what I'm doing here. Like, I knew I was in this liminal space, and you're like, okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
And I was like, and I knew in my core I had to choose. And I think you've mentioned that. I don't remember. I was in a pretty deep space then. And then that was when the journey began. But I just remember having a moment where before the breakthrough started to come and my throat was opening and my body was opening and I was yelling and stretching. And I just remember all the stagnancy was leaving of how much I was holding myself, holding every single thing in this toxic masculine paradigm that I had going on in my body. But I remember there was this moment where I was like it felt like I was anviled to the floor, and I saw these beings, and they were like, we are the beings of the earth. We are very real. You are under our domain now. And I just remember being like, having this experience of how powerful the earth is and how powerful her wisdom is and how she is here to heal us and to help us. And and you really held space. And then by the end, it was like, I was up dancing. You were like, I've never
I was like, okay, now I'm going to put on some ratchet music. And yes, we're still in ceremony.
We literally had Pony Genuine on.
Sway and move.
It was literally, I just remember being like, oh my God, like, and I felt free. Like there was a joy in my heart towards the end of the experience where it was just like, I felt home and I felt free. So yeah, thank you for that. Just thought I'd share publicly.
You're welcome. And that's it. I love that you shared your story, because so many women listening to this right now are going to resonate with your experience.
Yeah,
and it's so
people
powerful.
know me. People know me from then. And I've gotten absolute reflections over especially the last 2 years of how much I've changed. And I wasn't ready to talk about that I sat with that yet. A lot of integration, like you said, and it just didn't feel like time, but it's so beautiful now because it's just like, it is a big part of my healing journey that you really held the space there, Tiff.
I love you. Yes.
Yeah, I love you too.
I've been witness to that within you. I have seen you drop so much more deeply into your feminine. I've seen that in personal. I've seen that in business. I feel it in your energy.
Yes.
So I love that you shared that, because like I said, so many women are going to resonate with what it's like to feel like there's a part of you that's not plugging so deeply into your full capacity of your power.
Yeah.
And how that can just unlock and be ignited from a space of feminine power.
Yes.
Not control, not ego, but deep, reverent truth. And that just, once you hold yourself in that and it's embodied and it's integrated, your life is so different.
I know. And it's powerful, because speaking of more embodied leadership and coming from this more feminine, heart-led, soul-led place, that's something in theory I always wanted. And it wasn't until it was like there were things that needed to viscerally leave my body, my neural pathways. And this was just one way that I found to do that in a really profound way. But talk to us too, like in terms of, let's say, like intentional microdosing, how over time can someone expect to feel if this feels like something that's safe and approachable for them? I also want to talk about legalities too. We can speak into it, but it's like, I would love to hear from you. Like, what can someone expect to experience over time if this is the right sort of work for them to do in their lives?
So the amazing thing and the suggestion with microdosing is, yes, of course, bringing in the intentionality, but the consistency. So a lot of people will microdose maybe one time on a Tuesday and have a good experience, and that was a great day, but the benefits are coming with the consistency of the practice of microdosing 3 to 4 times throughout the week, you know, for about 90 days, and having that clear intention going into it. And some people will feel the benefits within the first day, within the first week. Sometimes if people have a little bit of a higher tolerance, which is totally normal, especially if you're on medication, sometimes it takes a little bit more time. But so many of the benefits, there's this whole like therapeutic perspective of, you know, mental health and mental healing and anxiety and depression and PTSD and OCD and ADHD. There are so many incredible studies and research and data from incredible institutions, Harvard, Stanford. I mean, so many that prove the data and that prove the validity in all of this.
Yes.
And there's this whole other component of peak performance, personal development, stepping into our feminine power, heart-centered leadership, and creativity and innovation. There's this whole other side of benefits that people are experiencing. And all of that has a collective theme, in my opinion, of coming home and coming so much more deeply into who you are and how you want to show up and how you respond and react to situations and what your truth is and how you want to show up in the world.
Yes.
Right? When we think of a creative block as an example, okay, that's the byproduct, but what's the actual symptom of what's preventing that from being, otherwise?
Yeah.
How can we go more into that? And what we see with intentional microdosing is it amplifies what's present within you. It amplifies what's there. So it can amplify the fear, it can amplify the anxiety, but it's also, once you clear that out and come to acceptance of whatever that means for you, and it's embodied and integrated, now all of a sudden the truth of what was underneath that is rising to the surface.
And I feel like in my experience and the work that we did together, it was really around releasing the toxicity of protection, this idea that I needed this toxic masculine protection within me. That, you know, it was interesting because the theme that came up through that journey specifically, and then what you helped me integrate also through the microdosing, was really around how much we can hold, how much we can hold that we just either aren't aware that we need to let go of, or we aren't willing to let go of because we feel on some level it's protecting us. Protecting us from what? I don't know. But that theme really came up a lot. How do you feel like when you think about your work, Tiff, and what it is that you want to see in the world with this? What's your vision? Like, why are you doing this? Because obviously this is also, it's a unique space. As you said, it's obviously so much more accepted, but it also in many places, it has not been decriminalized. And I know there's so much work being done right now. The Michael Pollan documentary was amazing to learn about this, but there's so much work being done to start to decriminalize this medicine and like really help people have other options if they want them beyond what's perhaps offered in just like the mainstream.
Absolutely. And my vision is, you know, thinking back to my story is from pharmaceuticals to psychedelics is like my tagline that I'm playing with right now, because it's hilarious and not, right? This just comes to show the vision of what's driving my desire so deeply forward, is leaving a career that was so stable to come into a sector. It's not even an industry yet. Where, yes, it's not legal in a lot of places. There's a few states that are, Colorado and Oregon, but there's a lot of restrictions around those models, and they have to be. And there's many other cities that are decriminalized, and that's popping up more, which is great and exciting, and it's moving things forward so positively. But what drives me and what drives my vision is this generation, our generation right now, is the generation moving this forward. We're in the responsibility of what our lineage and our ancestors have passed on to us to take the torch and to continue to drive this forward. And so the reason why it's almost like we're all kind of walking on eggshells with not wanting this to go back to the 50s where it was the war on drugs, which it still is, but it's come such a long way, where that's why the research and the data is so strongly driven right now, from a therapeutic perspective, because that's what's going to give the validity and the proof of this being an actual real life medicine, not a pharmaceutical, a medicine that is healing people. And so my vision is that it will reach all areas. There's, you know, of course, when we look at the government and drug development and biotech companies, obviously we're really familiar with that world. They're creating, they're developing drugs that are also going to reach people from a psychedelic perspective, but more in a clinical setting. And then we have the retreats and the underground and the guides and the coaches. And I see a world where all of that exists, because ultimately that's the medicine being served in different ways. And while it's not traditional to the ways that our ancestors served it, it's traditional to what we need today in this day and age. And for more people to have access in different ways. For example, somebody may want to work with these medicines, but they don't want to go to a retreat, or they don't feel like that resonates with them to go, to Peru and sit with ayahuasca. So maybe in a clinical setting that feels more safe for them. And ultimately that's going to bring the bridge of healing humanity and bringing this forward in such a beautiful way.
When you have you read the book or watched that documentary around the How to Change Your Mind?
Of course.
What are your thoughts around that? Because that was really what opened my mind and my awareness around this work. And I watched that before, you and I. So it actually made me a lot more, just feel more embodied in my decision to do something that I was pretty scared of, because surrendering and like letting go at that level just always kind of scared me. I think it frankly can scare a lot of people, no matter how seasoned you are with this kind of medicine and this kind of work. But what is your take on that, especially maybe for someone who wants like more education, or they'd like to like get to know this space more?
From the book or just in general?
I'd say maybe a little bit of both. Like, what are your thoughts about that book? And then also if there are resources, and I know you're working with Golden Rule and just like, let's like go there. Cause I want our gals who are listening, where they feel that this speaks to them, I want them to feel resourced and like this is something they could dive deeper into.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. I respect that. So the book is amazing. There's also a video on it. Michael Pollan, the author, was also interviewed by Oprah recently, which was incredibly powerful and huge.
Wow.
That Oprah has entered the chat. She's talking about psychedelics. Oh my God.
She's such an Aquarian. Like literally, she's like, let's go push that envelope. I love it. Wow, that's incredible.
It was so powerful, you know, for that to be so public and so mainstream and so relatable to so many people. So I love the way that Michael Pollan framed so much of the different medicines and also bringing in tobacco and things like that, where it can be used ceremonial. But even looking at our society today, where we drink coffee every single day for the most part, most of us, right? And that is a drug.
Yes.
There's this stigma against psychedelics and plant medicine simply based on the 50s of it being, you know, shut down, of being controlled, and the reasons why, because it's a threat to the system. And that's a whole other podcast. So if you're new, I think that is a beautiful place to I would say not fully start, but to educate yourself on it. It's so resourceful in so many ways. And he really breaks down the reasons for the fear, especially with the high doses, but the beauty that comes in around what that really means and how that comes full circle. I would say anybody that's new to microdosing, you can follow my work. I talk about microdosing all the time. I'm educating about it all the time, but I work with the company. I do advising for a company called Golden Rule Mushrooms, and we invite all walks of life, but especially people that are new, and that the business is set up that way to teach you, to handhold you, and to also allow the independence of your own experience, but to show you exactly how to work with the medicine, what medicine might be best for you, the dosing to work with the medicine, how to actually bring in practices to optimize the practice and work with it in a lot of different ways. And so that would be an incredible place to start. And it's also a beautiful product-based company, where that is a huge part of this is accessibility and sourcing, and from somebody that you really value and that you really trust. And so that is a phenomenal resource to start with. And I don't just say that because I'm biased and I work with them. It's an amazing company.
But that I think is so important, because in a lot of ways it's a little wild, wild west right now. So it's like to find people. That's another reason I was so excited to bring you on, also just because not only my experience with you and with the work, but in addition, it's like, this is how I think this work grows in a healthy way, is like you find people that you trust and who really have integrity with the whole process. And it's just so incredibly important. How do you see intentional microdosing and medicine work supportive for people who are in like life transitions or burnout, or just even just like exploring their purpose of like why they're soul incarnated? Maybe they just feel like they're stuck in something because they feel like they should, or they have a lot of responsibility. What's your approach to that, or like a message you have around that?
Yeah, I would say to listen to that. There's something within you that's wanting to unlock, that's wanting to come alive, that's wanting to be seen, that's wanting to remember. And working with these medicines, even at a low dose, is and can really support you in remembering that part of yourself. There's a reason that it's not maybe feeling as alive as you might desire. And so a lot of the things that we've kind of talked about with the science and the benefits, that's fully here and available for you to work with safely and in a way where your life is still going and moving. You can work, you can drive a car, you can do all things in life that are totally normal. This isn't a medicine that's creating any sort of like escape or bypassing for you. It's actually bringing you more present and more deeply into yourself.
Yes. This is a weird example, but I remember leaving. So, you know, when I was younger, Party Central, like all the more the chemical stuff. And I remember, this is again, weird example, but we're going to bring this home. But it was like, I remember when I would go to Coachella when I was younger, and I'd party and I'd drink and I'd do all these like very chemical type of drugs, and I'd leave and I would just look like I just looked like I died. And then over the years, healing, like, you know, going sober for a little while, not doing anything. And then when I came back and I felt more anchored and integrated, I would only, you know, stop drinking alcohol, but I would do like a little bit of psilocybin or like just very clean plant, like substances, and go to Coachella with that. And I remember leaving the festival and having like this moment, this is like 12 years ago, but I just remember looking in the mirror at the bathroom at like Subway as I was on my way back home to LA. And I looked like so healthy. Like I looked like I was like, I'd been sleeping regularly. I had a beautiful time at the festival. I danced. I had some like very beautiful experiences, but it's like, I didn't need to go off my rocker. And instead I got to have these expansive, heart opening, soul connecting moments at this music festival, but I didn't touch the chemicals anymore. It was like I was able to get it through just small amounts of like these really beautiful plants. And it was just like, I just remember having like a really key moment where I realized, man, but there's sort of an interesting lesson in that, even in like where we are right now collectively, where it's like, and this is not to badmouth, you know, sometimes some people do absolutely need pharmaceuticals or they need these, and I'm in no position to speak on that, but I more so mean the conversation around where people are just so in their left brain and so addicted to these parts of themselves that are just not who they truly are and like their core embodiment of self. And it's like, if there's one thing that I've experienced through this, it's like, even though this work can be intimidating, especially the higher dose experiences, but it's just like, it really is quite exquisite how it gets you connected again to the essence of who you actually are, and the reverberations of that are just amazing. And I think we're in a space right now where people are genuinely yearning for that, and that's why this work, it can't be suppressed, because when people ask for it and the people have spoken, it's like the call has to be answered. So yeah, it's really important what you're doing, my babe.
Thank you. Yeah, such a beautiful message. And yeah, you know, I think our society today, we're seeing less drinking. We're seeing less
especially
partying.
I've heard about this with Gen Z.
Gen Z.
They are like not really drinking alcohol.
And a lot of it is the rise of psychedelics.
Yes.
So many people are utilizing microdosing in a safe, effective, intentional way, even recreationally. That's very intentional.
Yes.
It can be, where they're choosing to take a low dose of LSD or psilocybin mushroom in a social setting, and they are more social. They have less anxiety. They're not drinking because they're feeling that. They're actually feeling more open and desiring to connect.
Wow.
And it's a connector. It opens us. It brings us closer to connection and depth and the way that we see people and the way that we relate to people and the way that we allow ourselves to be seen in that exchange.
Yes. I even like recently met someone who started like a THC like beverage company, and it's like CBD, a low dose of THC, but it's basically this alternative to alcohol. And I was looking at the branding and I was like, yo, this is so cute. It's very Gen Z though. And I was like, this must be like a more of a movement. And, you know, for me, like as a millennial, like I chose to stop drinking a while ago, but it's just like, I think it's so beautiful that we can see that we can reach these elevated states and actually heal and move forward and expand versus like suppress and go into the dark. Cause that's always what that stuff did for me. It always sent me, the chemicals and the alcohol always sent me deeper into the dark.
Such a good point, because that's exactly what we're experiencing today. Is we can go into this elevated, conscious, connected state without being drunk. Without taking too many drugs, as an example. We're still present and conscious and connecting. And that is a complete paradigm shift. That's the opposite of what we've been taught. So I truly believe that psychedelics are the future of that. They're already beginning that process.
And it's just, like I said, I mean, to me, this is just such important work. And like, I just feel like the time I spent with you and even the people that I've referred to you, and just seeing how it's like you could talk for years and years in therapy and that has its place, but then to be able to just integrate and evolve at a faster pace and just to like be able to really take care of yourself from like a core level. I mean, it's exquisite. So thank you, my babe. This is so, I'm so grateful I got to have you, and just thank you for the work you're doing. Where can my women find you?
Thank you so much. It's been such a beautiful conversation. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at I am Tiffany Hurd. Website tiffanyhurd.com. I'm pretty present on both of those.
Nice, babe. Thank you so much. It's been a gift.
Love you.
Thank you guys so much. Love you so much.